Right, we've got how did the Soviets react to the moon landings? Let's check this out, man.
When we think about the moon landings, it's often seen through the lens of an American victory in the space race. What isn't often discussed is how the USSR, America's rival, reacted to the landings. Was its government upset about not being the first to the moon, or were they excited about such a major event in human history?
Nah, they're pissed.
Race to space between the USSR and the USA during the 1960s. Well, sort of. It was more about creating delivery vehicles for nuclear weapons to destroy each other, but there was some sciencing in the meantime.
Yeah.
The USSR was initially in the lead, having put an object in orbit and then being the first to put a man into space.
Crazy.
In the end, though, it was the Americans who got there first, with Neil Armstrong being the first man.
I wonder how.
Incidentally, the Soviet lunar...
Has it actually like... Oh, I've seen so many videos about it being fake, and it actually does really seem fake. You guys really need to put your like opinions in the comment section. I need to see what you guys think. Do you think it was real? Do you think it was fake? Like, if you got any videos, you know, are good videos to watch about it, link them down below as well. I really want to check it out.
An unmanned mission at the time the astronauts were on the moon, which failed and crashed into the surface. So after this, how did the Soviets react?
Wait, what happened there?
Failed and crashed. The Soviet lunar program was conducting an unmanned mission at the time the astronauts were on the moon, which failed and crashed into the surface.
No way.
So after this, how did the Soviets react? Did they try to suppress it or claim that it didn't happen? Nope. First of all, footage of the landings was shown on Soviet television, but frankly not many Soviet citizens owned a television, and thus it wasn't something many could watch. It was quickly reported afterwards in the national media, although it wasn't front page news, but simply listed as a run-of-the-mill story. One thing the Soviets didn't speak of was the failure of their lunar lander. They waited until the timing was a bit...
Wait, so the Americans had the astronauts on the moon, and then the Soviets, at like the same time they was there, sent a robot there, but it crashed. Oh, they was trying to take him out. That's what they was trying to do.
Furthermore, the Soviet government congratulated the Americans on their success and spoke of a future joint mission to the moon. This was mostly just friendly overtures, by the way. Both the USSR and the USA were becoming increasingly frustrated by the costs of their space programs. Conveniently, the USSR also changed its mind on its own moon program, and it declared that such landings were dangerous and self-indulgent. In terms of leadership, it's hard to know how any of them felt on a personal level, since, you know, secretive communist state.
Right.
It's also pretty easy to imagine that cosmonaut Alexei Leonov would have been pretty disappointed. Why? Because he had been selected by Soviet leadership to be the first man on the moon had the Soviets got there first. Another person of influence in the USSR who was known to be furious was the former First Secretary Nikita Khrushchev. The Soviet space program was his doing, and for him, not being the first to the moon demonstrated that the Soviet Union was losing its way. So what about the Soviet people and the...
You know what? It's actually even more disappointing now, knowing the fact of like how much of the impact the first person on the moon was, and man, that's crazy.
The communist bloc. Many
how famous it would have been,
or weren't too fussed about America's scientific endeavours. There were some who were upset with the USSR seeming to lose to the Americans, but barring that, the response to it was exceptionally muted. It was only really the scientists who'd worked for the USSR's own space program that had any sort of publicly positive response to it. And across the broader Warsaw Pact, well, frankly, the event didn't receive much coverage there either. The primary reason being that many of its governments were, at the time, commemorating 20 years of communist rule. So, in conclusion, as many of you would expect, the Soviet response to the moon landings was mixed and not very public.
No. You know, pretty much they hidden the fact of their true feelings, right? They was like, oh, you know what? We congratulate you, right? We should do like a joint co-op kind of thing, right? That's what they're putting on the front, but behind the scenes, no, they're pissed.
The leadership wanted to get to the moon first, but they failed to do so. And given the timing of their own failed mission, they felt little need to make too much fuss about it. The USSR, along with its puppet states, were focused on the 20th anniversary of communism in Eastern Europe, which overshadowed the American achievement. For what it's worth, despite the USSR's lack of enthusiasm, they did congratulate the Americans. And frankly, their response was a lot more positive than the American one to start with. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
It's not bad. They seem more positive than I thought anyway, but really good video. If you guys got any videos about like the moon landings and stuff you want me to check out, leave them down below in the comment section. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.